Hi, I'm Clifford Bradley and welcome to another Composer to Composer discussion, brought to you by the Australian Guild of Screen Composers. Late last year I chatted with Michael Lira, composer to the film Nekotronic. I was lucky enough to be an orchestrator working with him on that film, and it picked up a nomination for Best Feature Film Score of the Year at the 2020 APRA AMCOS Screen Music Awards, and we were chatting a couple of weeks before those awards were announced. So let's look at that now. Hello, Michael.
Hi there. Thanks for having me, Cliff.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for coming along today. Really good to have you on board.
Thanks very much. It's an honor.
Awesome. Okay, so why don't we just dive straight in and show everyone the trailer from Nekotronic, which is the film. We're going to be talking a fair bit about the music to that film today. So let's have a look at the trailer now.
What are you watching?
A donkey trying to have sex with a phone box. It's pretty funny.
Why would you watch that?
Why wouldn't you watch that?
I don't want to watch.
You dickheads are going to have to take Dad's shift.
We just come off a 17-hour shift. We haven't even slept yet.
Do you want to play a game that will change your world forever? Hell no!
What did you do to me? Escape to hospital!
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Who are you people?
Howard, you're a necromancer. You're a demon hunter. Like us. Come again? But recently, some evil son of a bitch worked out a way to blast demons inside the internet. Now they can get you through your files.
You're either coming with us, or you're going with her.
I'll come with you.
Sending your demon goons out to kill all the necromancers in the city.
Okay, I copped that.
Running is not an option. Not for any of us.
Cool.
Suck on this.
Oh, how do I look? Good, really good.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love this. I've got to say, I love the score to this film. I love the way you worked with between the action and the little comedic moments and your use of the electronics and live orchestra. And yeah, it's a really fantastic score. I think you did a great job.
Thanks very much.
Oh, you're most welcome. So why don't we just start? Let's just have a chat about how did things kick off, the relationship with the director and the producers, which obviously is the key relationship in a film score for the composer. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about the directors and producers and working with them and how that came about and how that all proceeded? Yeah.
Well, I originally saw some crowdfunding that the main producers and directors had done. That's Kia Roach-Turner and Tristan Roach-Turner. They had something called Wormwood, and they did this fantastic short, which is a proof of concept to do the film. And then they'd done like a fundraising campaign. And I'd seen that and thought, this looks incredible, and tried to contact them about doing the score if they needed a composer. And didn't really hear back. And then I'd seen that on IMDb, another mutual friend knew them. So I contacted her and asked if she could put a good word in for me, because I'd been working on another film. That was Rosie Lord, producer for a very different film, which was a drama. But she put a good word in, and then I got to do a pitch sequence on one of the scenes of that, which was particularly crazy scene with a girl suddenly getting transformed into a zombie and attacking her friends. And it's faster zombies mostly in that film too, so it was pretty wild and frenetic. And it was raw, it was low budget. So I kind of, I went with that. I went with scratchy acoustic. I sort of recorded all the instruments around me. Even pots and pans, literally banging things and going quite crazy with it. And then I got the gig, which was really fun. And that scene pretty much stayed as it was from that original pitch. So that sort of sparked a really good working relationship. I think there's a lot of similar influences, and both Kia and Tristan love scores, and a lot of the temp score that that Kia would use would often be Christopher Young, and there's some great Evil Dead score. I can't remember. I don't know how to pronounce it. Roque Baños, who did the newer Evil Dead. That stuff's fantastic. So yeah, it makes it easier when there's an appreciation of fun, bombastic scoring to be able to do something in that vein, because it's what I got into scoring to do, but it's taken a long time to be in a position where I get to write like that, and then of course have a situation where there's a budget to be able to record something that lives up to that sound. So yeah, it's an exciting. It's lucky to have, to be in a situation where there's directors where you have that relationship.
Yeah, no, and one thing that I do think works really well in the film is the way you seamlessly integrate like rock band instruments. You've got like drum kits and electric guitars in the start, you know, that opening sequence, and then electronic stuff, and then, you know, and then full, you know, legit orchestral scoring in places, and it just all seems seamless. It all seems to gel together. Yeah, do you have any tricks? What's your tricks? How do you gel together those three elements? Because I've seen it fail miserably, and in this one it worked really nicely.
I've always been a fan of fast changing music stylings and things being clumped together. I mean, from a scoring sense, bands would be the main thing actually. Like bands like Mr. Bungle and John Zorn's Naked City, which like they just snap feels and changes seamlessly. But then artists like Danny Elfman, where like there's lots of hybrid with the Men in Black stuff, which is I think it was a different approach again, but yeah, I like that sort of hybrid tone. But it really is just following the energy and the action of, you know, you can only really there's very few projects where you can do something like that and it actually sits. So yeah, it was.
I remember. I still remember sitting in the cinema watching the opening scene of Men in Black. You know, that sequence with the dragonfly. Amazing.
Yeah.
The music was just mind-blowingly good in that film. Really.
Yeah.
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 That's. So yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, I worked sort of with you working on the orchestral side of things, and then got to see it all come together at the end. There was a lot of notes sometimes all going into the mix at one time, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I reckon, let's look at a clip of let's look at the brass clip of so this is recording the Monster Brass. So this is the brass recording session, and then it transitions into the actual scene from the film. So let's watch that. Cool. So yeah, that's a great little clip showing how, you know, what it sounded like in the session, and then how it worked in the film, which is beautiful. I must mention at this point too that the music is really nicely mixed. So who did the mix on
That's
that?
Evan McHugh.
That is
Evan
Evan.
did, yeah, he set up the recording session and as well, and was involved right from the beginning, and just he's got serious skills, and that makes a difference. That's the first time I've had that luxury as well.
Yeah.
Of working, you know, with someone usually it's like me with my own microphone and sort of setting some levels and putting it through like some sort of compressor. But yeah, having someone who really specializes in their craft makes a difference.
Yeah, no, I noticed that, you know, but particularly sounds all very well to go, oh, we're going to mix rock band and orchestra. And then you hear it, it's just like, I can't hear anything. There's just too much going on. But he got really nice separation.
Yeah.
So and then how it actually sat within the sound design was really nicely done as well. So that's, you know, and I've seen big budget feature films where they didn't quite pull that off. So, yeah, very impressive.
Yeah, it was a great team. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess how did you? Let's talk about, you know, working with the live orchestra, and you were saying was this one of the sort of one of the first films that you'd done a lot of stuff with live orchestra, or how much did you work with live?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'd only worked with you know, small string ensembles or bands, like at the most up to 12 people. So this was a huge shift for me, big jump. And yeah, being able to work with a team of orchestrators like yourself, Jessica Wells, and everyone. There's a lot of people on this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And gosh, yeah, everyone just did an incredible job. There was a lot of puzzles. It was pretty, I suppose, with the luxury of being able to be in a position where we got to record orchestra, came also the pressures of deadlines and ever-changing reels. Like, we just kept getting new edits rolling in. We were recording while the cut was still changing. So it was a pretty tough gig, but yeah, so much fun as well. Actually, it was interesting too, because we didn't quite. There wasn't the budget to do all the cues, so it was a very difficult decision, having to make some choices over what we actually would do, and then what we could either get away with or potentially rebuild. And as soon as I heard how the recordings had turned up, I knew that I would have to try and work out how to re-edit other cues. There was actually some good cues and themes that just got lost altogether, that were replaced with recorded score, edited, which had its pros and cons. I do kind of miss the themes, but yeah, it was because we recorded it in sections rather than everyone in the room together, like doing the brass separately, especially when they were doing that volume. That gave us the opportunity then to also build things from those stems and create new cues. So it was a lot of hard work. Poor Tim Ryan was, you know, I'd come to him with these plans of how we could rebuild a scene, and then he'd go away and like painstakingly edit things at, you know, all the because there was a lot of microphones in the room. Like, I only ever deal with like stereo projects, and but it's a whole other thing when you've got all those microphones to contend with. So I didn't quite understand how involved a music editor's job could actually be until I saw what was involved there with those takes and all the different takes and options. It was There was a lot of work. Gee, I'm babbling, aren't I?
Oh, it's great. It's great. This is really good. Yeah, and I suppose this is more and more the norm these days, isn't it? Budgets are ever shrinking. You don't get 10 days at Abbey Road with the London Symph very often, unless you're sort of in a select bunch of people working on a select bunch of very, very high budget films. And most of the time it's making do with probably not enough money, isn't it? So you have to be very clever with how you use those sessions, and being able to reuse material sounds like it's, you know, strategically a very important part of the process.
Yeah, I think it can certainly help to see if there's any through lines with what you're writing, to see if there are potential plans. I mean, even like when doing a take, getting cues played slower, the same thing, or getting stems of that one element can then become a cue. So as much as possible, I'd try and factor those things. But at the same time, they're two very different brains. I think the analytical mindset of thinking about orchestration and actual playing and the dissecting of the parts and the harmonies versus composing, like I find it's just such a different wavelength. And I actually kind of prefer the focusing on the orchestration and the planning of that side of it a little bit more than fishing around. I find I feel a bit clearer when I've got something tangible to work with.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, personally, I love looking at a score and seeing the dots on the page, and I know, you know, you and I have had many phone calls on various films where we've sat and looked at the dots on the page and discussed them at length. I reckon let's watch one more clip from the recording session. This is strings, I think, mainly, isn't it?
That string run, is it? Or
how about I'll play it first, and then we can talk about it.
Sure. How good are those players?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And yes, those play. We should probably mention the people that actually play the notes. It never ceases to amaze me how just phenomenal these musicians are at reading the dots off the page and turning it into just audio magic.
That was unbelievable. That was take 2.
Yeah.
Of that run, and that's all we did. It was like, great, next. So I could not believe it.
Yeah. So what cue was that?
That was They're in the Building, 2M4.
They're in the Building. Okay, fantastic.
It's a shame hearing it back on its own and how good it sounds, but the reality is it got pretty buried with all the moving minor chords in the brass, choir, and sort of pretty much rest of the orchestra, and then sound design too. It's kind of, you don't really hear that detail, which is kind of sad. Might need to go back and remix.
That happens sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess the question on everyone's lips, and we have to cover this. Talk us through the gear that you use, Michael, when you're writing.
It is probably the most fun aspect, isn't it? Look, it's an ever-changing thing, and I've also just switched to the latest Mac with USB-C. So I'm going through all kinds of trials and tribulations, losing sleep, downloading things, and finding things aren't compatible. So my system's I'm still sorting out a new template. But yeah, I like working in Logic, although I do miss elements of both Cubase and Pro Tools. But yeah, just knowing that the updates were always there for Logic when in the event that I needed a new Mac, at least I knew that the main sequencer would be running and compatible. So it was part of it, and also just the processing capabilities at the time. Pro Tools was not function. I remember it kept saying physical RAM error, and I just kept wondering who this physical RAM was. How was it so physical? And so in Logic, if I get any downtime, I like to kind of go through my samples and see if I can rework a better flowing system. But it's a delicate balance of trying to get as many instruments in your palette without just draining all your CPU just by having these things open. And there's always new ways of doing things that make things a little bit faster and easier. But I like having an orchestral template ready to go in the event that I need to go there. And then I build synthetic instruments for specific projects after that in a new couple of instances of Contact. I'm using Contact as well. But I've got Cine Winds, which I run. I've got piccolo, flute, oboe, clarinet, bass clarinet, bassoon, and contrabassoon, all ready to go, and they're key switched, so that I can jump from staccato to legato, trills. No real effects, but it's good for having thematic, just to quickly put down thematic ideas. I just realized those speakers aren't connected anymore. But it's nice to be able to switch to, if you imagine a melody, to have it there and ready to be played in any given sound. And then I've got some Albion woodwinds set into groups. So I've got woodwind ensembles with Albion. In the event that a session runs too big with the Cine Winds, I just find having just wind groups useful. So I've got legato, short, long, both high section and a low section, just groups of woodwinds. And I think they're really nice. And when you're using the mod wheel, like if you put the long highs and lows together, it's really, really nice. Like the Nekotronic. Which is obviously heavily inspired by both the map room from Raiders of the Lost Ark and Christopher Young's Hellraiser. Having a moody pedaling drone, and then a whole series of minor chords over the top is just fun.
Yeah. Well, might as well learn from the best, eh?
Yeah.
Uh,
Is it? Yeah, and then I've got some woodwind effects and runs. I love these flute chords, which is a Spitfire one from Bernard Herrmann Library. That they've got. They've grouped into nice. There's a nice augmented chord there. Yeah, lovely. I'm not sure if those sounds are translating, especially because I can't go full volume right now.
I can hear them, but they're, yeah. What do you use for like drums and percussion and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Still working that out. I had used for a long time East-West. Got really used to using just for. I loved the timpani, the key switch, and sensitivity for rolls and hits. I really always loved using a lot of timpani. I mean, anything loud. But found out in the recording process, it was hard to mix from those samples to get it sounding as good as some of the other libraries. So I'm sort of getting a feel at the moment for cine percussion, which the stuff sounds really good. But it's one of those things too where I'd love. I think there's just no avoiding the ever-changing beast of sound libraries needing to update and systems being incompatible. So I'm trying to like not have as many different instruments from different libraries that I rely on and for when they are incompatible, because I currently can't get East-West play going.
Oh, really?
So it's driving me a bit mad. So I'm just like, yeah, I've lost my Celeste, my timpanis and cymbals and the other things that I would go to. But I'm in.
Yeah, that would grind a lot of studios to a halt.
Yeah, it's pretty nerve-wracking when you have to quickly troubleshoot something. But there's that old thing too of like, be sure to never change your setup during a project, which is good that I've sort of not done that.
It's tempting, isn't it? An update to the program you're using comes out, especially if there's a bug that's been annoying you, and you're like, "Oh, fixes this bug."
And there's always someone saying, "Don't do it."
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I reckon let's watch a clip from a different film that you've done, which was more recently. I think you did this last year, the Sea Lions.
Oh yeah.
Film. So what was the name of that one again?
Sea Lions: Life by a Whisker.
Life by a Whisker, yeah.
Since COVID, I mean, it was going to be in all the IMAX screens in the US, but I think it's all on hold. But I'm not sure what they'll be doing. But
right, well, I'm gonna play this clip from Sea Lions. This is another clip from the scoring session. So yes, there we have it. That's some music from Life by a Whisker, the scoring session. And I must mention at this point too that the conductor there was none other than Christopher Gordon, one of Australia's top film composers in his own right. It must be amazing to have Christopher as a conductor, working with him in the sessions.
Just incredible. It's so humbling. He's just such a phenomenal talent. I mean, yeah, to have his understanding of music is something I aspire to, but I've kind of given up. I'll sort of work on my own areas, I think. But yeah, he's it's incredible to see him at work. It's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a walking dictionary of music. We still occasionally consult him on how should we notate this, and he's always got an answer. He's a really fantastic musician, which is nice to know that your music's in such safe hands on the program, isn't it? And
I remember those moments where he looked at a page and would say, you know, in an area that there was a particular extended chord or cluster or something, and he was like, "Did you mean this, Michael?" And then he'd get musicians to adjust notes or reharmonize a little bit. Okay, yep, that sounds great. That's exactly what I meant. Yeah, he's really, really incredible.
yeah, fantastic. Well, I think we might wrap that up there for today.
Oh, great.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming and giving up your time to come and speak with me and speak with us. It's great to hear the insights on an actual film score, and one that's out at the moment and up for awards. So yeah, on behalf of the Guild of Screen Composers, I'd just like to thank you very much, Michael Lira.
It's an absolute honor. Thank you very much, and thanks for your work.
Right. So that was Michael Lira. Thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on the next installment of the Composer to Composer discussions. Goodbye. Tell me that story again. So Michael, you didn't tell me about what happened in relation to that Facebook message you sent to the producers of Wormwood.
Yeah, so after my initial sort of cold calling Facebook message asking them if they had a composer, and then not getting a response, and then ended up going through completely different avenues, ultimately doing the job. But it wasn't until like 2.5 years later that I finally got a response from that original message. And they said, sorry, we've found someone. Knowing full well it was me.